Welcome back to the Discover podcast, where we view faith as a discovery journey with Jesus to help you become the person God created you to be. Hey, on this episode, we have a chance to hear a great story of somebody who was able to overcome a lot of ailments in life with not knowing who they are and covering up insecurities by running to alcohol and being the life of the party, all while suffering with chronic anxiety and even experiencing panic attacks. And get to hear the story of how God brought them through to a victorious end. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. And I think if you're in a place where you're struggling with anxiety, panic attacks, or just not knowing who you are, you'll benefit from hearing the story today. Well, hey there, Meadowbrook Church. Welcome back to the Discover podcast. I am here with the one and only Ethan Schauf. You know, I've never asked
Schauf.
Okay. See, all these years I've been saying Schauf. I think it's Schauf, and I've never actually asked you.
Now we know.
And now publicly, people know that I never knew how to say your last name till now. Schauf.
Schauf.
There we go.
It's okay. Anglicanized. It's really the German Schauf.
Schauf.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Schauf.
But even more importantly, to the students at our youth ministry, you are known as Papa E.
Yeah. That kind of came about organically. There's a lot of Ethans that we had at one point, and it was fall retreat in 23 that they decided to call me Papa E, and it stuck. So
yeah,
I'm kind of Papa E to everybody around here now.
Yeah, and at Lambeau Field, you are the mayor.
The mayor of my section, 110. Been sitting in the same seat since I was 4 years old. Yeah. Section 110, row 38, seat 1. That's me. You can find me going up and down the aisles at the games. We'll got a ridiculous outfit.
We'll need to find a picture of that outfit and overlay it on this moment so people can see how amazing it is.
I have very little shame, Brian.
Yeah.
I really have very little.
Yes. I mean, I think you even wore that outfit when we did I forget what it was.
It was a photo scavenger hunt we did around town, and I was walking around town
as the mayor.
4 o'clock in the 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was getting looks.
Yeah.
I was getting looks.
Yeah, that's great. All right, well, let's go ahead and just jump into your story.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about just who you are in terms of the makeup of your family, how long you've been at Meadowbrook, what you do for work. Just give us a snapshot of who you are.
Yeah, makeup of my family. I don't know how deep you want to go, but got my two parents and an older sister. And then now I'm married to my wife, Cassie. Mm-hmm. We met at St. Luke's. I'm a nurse by trade and training, and she and I were nursing assistants, both of us in nursing school at the time. Mm-hmm. This would have been about 2017 that she had started there earlier, but we really started talking in 2017. And so we've been married since 2020. Got married in the heat of the pandemic, which was interesting, but also kind of a blessing. It was an odd time, but a really bright, shining moment in a dark time. And working in healthcare at the time, of course, was especially dark. So anyhow, now my wife and I live with my parents down in Yorkville, which is in Racine County, farm country. That's where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And we've been blessed with the opportunity to live with my parents now while we're working on building our forever home, as they call it. So right there on the family land, we've got our own little compound going on, and it's really great. So it's been good to spend time with my parents. My dad's retired now, and boy, is he retired. It's interesting how precipitously he's aging. Watching Price is Right at 10 o'clock. It's appointment viewing for him every day. But getting to spend time with them as an adult has been really a blessing. And now to live just a stone's throw from them and be a resource for them and get to share in life together has really been a blessing, and looking forward to
really
what
cool.
that's going to bring. Yeah.
So how long have you been coming to Meadowbrook Church?
So I was actually on the way here. I looked it up on my Google timeline. It was November 13th of 2022 that Cassie and I came. We were kind of in flux, didn't have a church home. My wife grew up Catholic, and so she wasn't really feeling, attending a Catholic church and that type of thing. We were at, oh my gosh. Well, anyway, we were looking at churches, and there were some good ones that just didn't quite gel with us. And one Saturday night, it would have been November 12th. Cassie looks at me. She said, "We should go to Meadowbrook." And I said, "Well, why should we go to Meadowbrook?" She said, "Well, they got a 4.9 star rating on Google.
Yeah, we do.
So
Google's everything.
yeah, it was at the time for sure. And so we came to the 8:45 service that next day, that Sunday. And, you talked about it, you might even talked about it that day, but how important it is for this church to be welcoming to new people, new believers, people looking for a church home. And we certainly found that really welcoming group of people, got to talk to some people. I think you and I might have even spoken that day because you saw me sticking out like a sore thumb that I was a new guy. And so you came and talked to me, and that really just meant everything. And so we just started coming more frequently. And then in that summer of 23 was when we started the softball team, and I jumped at that opportunity because at one point in my life I was an athlete, so I thought, hey, let's see if I can still do it.
Not so much,
but it was an absolute blast, and connecting with those guys on a weekly basis led to early morning Bible study that's still going on, but with my work schedule I've been unable to attend. But all that is to say that I found a really great group of guys to hook up with. And for those of you who don't know, working in healthcare is very female dominated, which is great. I've learned a ton and all of that, but having a good group of guys to lean on has been super influential for me these last several years. So that's really glad to have that.
Yeah, what I remember of you coming to our church is we met one time here, that one time, and then like a week or two later, I was walking my dog through, what would be like Tosa, the Highlands Heights neighborhood, and like you're coming at me. I'm like, I think I know this guy. Like, I think he's at my church. I think, And so then we stopped and chatted for a minute, and it was you, and I did remember you, and then like I don't know. A few other times before you guys ended up moving down to where you are now, like we would bump into each other on our morning walks, which was really fun.
Yeah, so I do miss that neighborhood. It was really, really wonderful. But yeah, definitely remember running into you right outside Washington Elementary there. So
totally.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into your own faith journey and how you came to the Lord and how you came to faith and just kind of what that was like, and then we'll kind of go from there.
So I think for maybe a lot of people, my story is pretty typical for people who have been walking in the Christian faith their whole life. I grew up, my parents are absolutely phenomenal individuals. My mom's a nurse. My dad owned a marketing firm, but always put God first. I mean, he started a career in 2003. He started a company in 2003 that was really God-focused. He eschewed a lot of opportunity and financial gain to really do the Lord's work through marketing and starting a company. So anyway, I had examples of godly living and fearing God from my whole life. So I don't really have a moment where I remember throwing up my hands and saying, I accept Jesus as my Savior. It kind of was just a given. It was just how I was brought up and raised. Had a really wonderful church that we grew up in. Had a lot of great experiences in youth group and all that type of thing. My parents, from the time that I think they were still dating, so in their like early 20s, they had a Bible study with high school students, and they ran that all the way through even till I was graduating high school. So always had the Bible front and foremost, and God was the center of everything. And I had that my whole life and adolescence. And so where my story really gets interesting, at least from my perspective, was when I graduated from high school. And looking back on it, seems kind of silly, but I had a girlfriend in high school, and she was a year older, and she went off, and then we ended up breaking up. And of course, at 17, 18 years old, I was like heartbroken,
devastated,
and everything around me just reminded me of that heartbreak, and I just needed to get out of Dodge. And so I was accepted to Tulane University in New Orleans, and I jumped at the opportunity for a lot of reasons, but mostly that, like, I don't want to look back and say I wish I had.
Yeah.
Right? So I did. And boy, when you're my town that I grew up in, very monochromatic, a lot of like-minded people. I I wasn't challenged. My faith wasn't challenged.
Yeah.
My heart wasn't challenged. My mind really also wasn't challenged. May sound like a humble brag, and that's not the point. I really didn't have to try when it came to academics, athletics. It just was kind of things that came naturally.
You were one of those guys.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't have to study for the test and just walk in, stayed up all night playing video games, and I aced it.
And boy, that works out great for high school. But then you go to, what is a prestigious university, and I was surrounded by just super talented, super intelligent people. And, it's one thing you're getting schooled in the classroom and having a hard time, and then you go to the gym to play pickup basketball with these guys, and they absolutely school you there too. And so, like, I thought I was really something special, and then learned that I wasn't. And at least from that human perspective, I wasn't something special. And I went through an awful lot. I've come to realize that I have a very addictive personality. I've diagnosed myself with ADHD. Now, I don't know how legit that is, but based on all of my personality, or what I thought was my personality, may have actually just been neurodivergence. And with that comes a bit of an addictive personality, chasing good feelings and trying to cover up for insecurities that I had. My confidence and bravado that I had at the time, I'm looking back now realizing was really anxiety in disguise. And I did a lot of self-medicating, mostly with alcohol, and leaned heavily on that just to shut my mind down. And never in my life asked for help. Never realized maybe even that I needed help. So all of this is to say that when I went off to college and was left to my own devices, I found that my faith wasn't maybe as strong as I thought it was. Wasn't maybe the foundation that I thought it was. And I kind of gave it up, if I'm being honest. It was still there. I still had a moral compass that was probably rather legalistic, but it was a lot of head knowledge, right? Not a lot of heart knowledge. And really, really struggled. I mean, talk about like losing your identity, because that's really what I thought my identity was in Christ. But then when left to my own devices out on my own, found that it was kind of a house built on sand, right? And I think this is maybe a little off, but like in John chapter 3, I think it is, Jesus talks to Nicodemus, and then shortly thereafter he talks to the woman at the well, right? And he talks to them very differently. Talks to Nicodemus as an academic and gives him what he needs, because Nicodemus has all this knowledge, and then Jesus tells him what he needs. And then he comes to the woman at the well and gives her a completely different thing, but it's exactly what she needs to hear.
Exactly, yes.
Right? And so I take away from that God speaks to us in ways that we and only we understand. And what I needed more than anything was failure. And so when I went off to school, I failed. Literally, figuratively, mentally, emotionally. Like I was broken, absolutely broken, and I needed it. And at the time it sucked.
I bet.
It was awful. I was in an absolutely dark place, still portraying this man of confidence, and maybe my toxic trait is pouring into other people. I would just continue to love on other people and give words of affirmation and have all these things, making it look like I had it together, when Lord knows I did not. And
did you ever have moments where like you were able to like identify that in real time, where like I'm doing this to try and make myself feel better, or to try and put on this front, but I'm like dying inside?
I think looking back, Brian, I absolutely did, but was not at a place to accept it or do anything about it. Just kept covering it up. And so 2014, I came back home absolutely humbled. I remember it was like 5:30 in the morning. I was living with these, it's so random, but some students from UNO. They were these couple Honduran guys I found on Craigslist. I needed a place to stay for my last semester that I was down there. And I left so much in my room there, but I packed up my car to the gills, and at 5:30 in the morning, I drove straight home 15 and a half hours. Just stopped for gas, and I knew then that I wasn't going back.
Yeah. What year were you like done with school? Like, had you graduated, or were you like?
No.
Okay.
No, I was not done.
Yeah. Okay. But you just.
But I was done.
Yeah, you were done there for sure.
Yeah. And so that was a really, I mean, you got 15 and a half hours to yourself to think about it, and that was really tough to contend with, kind of admitting that I had really, really, truly failed, at least with this venture.
How many years or semesters were you
4.
there? Okay, 4 years?
4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it sounds so dumb. You know, like it sounds like it, but it was 4 years of struggle and learning about myself, and also covering up, like we were saying.
Yeah.
So I came home and lived with my parents, and that was also needed. Had a lot of good talks with my parents, but still for quite some time was continuing this cycle of drinking, alcoholism, covering up stuff, and then my mom said to me, like I said, she's a nurse, and she said to me, Ethan, go get your CNA. I said, I don't want to go get my CNA. She said, go get your CNA. So I went and got my CNA.
Yeah.
My certified nursing assistant certification, and I got that through Aurora. Had lots of ideas about what I wanted to do. I applied when I went through the program with Aurora, and you just apply to St. Luke's, and whoever's hiring a CNA, you get an opportunity to interview. And I got a cold call from this inpatient rehab manager, and she said, hey, I think you said in your application you want to work with neuro patients, because that was my background at Tulane. And I said, yes. She said, well, we got lots of neuro on rehab. And so long story short, I took the job there, and I've been there ever since. And now I'm the supervisor of the nurses for that unit. I feel absolutely blessed to still be part of that team. That's 10 and a half years now I've been there.
Yeah.
So really super cool. Met some wonderful people. And like I said, I met my wife there.
So in order to be able to like tell this story and know this story, because, you know, looking back on it, you know, you're able to identify these things. There had to have been some turning point for you to have this awareness of like, okay, this is how I was managing my life. It wasn't working.
You want to know the crucible?
Yeah.
I got it for you. I got it for you. So leading up to January 3rd, 2018, my brother-in-law's brother was having a bachelor party down in Michigan City, Indiana, in that area on the lake. And as we know, with bachelor parties, a lot of drinking is involved and all of that. And I, for 3 days, had been drinking probably from, you know, the time I woke up till the time I went to bed. And I was headed home that Sunday, January 3rd, and I was on the interstate and started to feel like I was really on the verge of death. Looking back on it now and knowing what I know now, it was a panic attack. It was my first panic attack. I had never experienced it before. And I ended up, my brain would not work. I could not find a hospital. I was trying to find on my phone. I could not find one. So I ended up pulling into a Walgreens on the south side of Chicago and called an ambulance. And they took me to, I can't even remember what hospital it was, some hospital there on the south side of Chicago. And I had to call my parents and say, hey, I'm not well, and I need your help. And because they're wonderful people, they came pick me up, took my car home, took me home. And that crucible moment was really the start of my healing process. And I was 100% broken. Cassie and I were dating at the time, and there were several times I would be at class. I was in nursing school. I'd be in class, and a panic attack would be setting in, and I would have to call her, and she would come pick me up. It happened probably 2 or 3 times that she would come and pick me up. Never once did she make me feel lesser than or, you know, weak or whatever. She loved me in a way that I never had been loved before, which was just being there. No matter what. And I know I would not have gotten through that time without her. And she knows that. I've told her. She's an incredible woman, and I'm very blessed to have her. So getting through it, of course, dealing with the anxiety, there's medications. I didn't respond well to the medications that you take daily, but I got dependent on clonazepam, which is an anxiolytic for anxiety, and then working with my doctor, weaning off of that was a whole process too. But here again, now we're starting to see like it wasn't alcohol, and then it was clonazepam, and it was all of these things trying to deal with my anxiety rather than getting at the root of what the anxiety was. And boy, I'm being really long-winded.
No, this is great.
So then I don't know the exact moment, but I realized it was my dependence on these things that was causing my anxiety as well as my lack of faith.
Yeah.
Those things in tandem. Which one caused the other? Heads or tails. But on April 22nd of 2023, it was my Cassie's birthday. We went out to Madison, celebrated, and for her birthday, we had a glass of wine, and I said to her, this is the last one. And it still is.
Oh.
It's the last one.
That's great.
I haven't had a drink of alcohol since that time, and that's really, really, truly when I was allowing myself to heal and work through it. And then, of course, all of it, the timeline, there's November of 22, we started coming here, and then now we're talking spring of 23 was when I'm really starting to make moves. So it's God coming into my life, filling those gaps and iniquities and insecurities and things that I had that I was afraid of. He was starting to fill in. And I remember, I don't know the exact time, I think it was that summer. You know me, I'm an extrovert through and through. I love being around people. And if you can imagine now, one of my triggers is being around people. My anxiety kicks up when I'm around people.
Yeah.
And now I've lost my security blanket, my thing that fills me up. Going to Lambeau Field and Packer games terrified me. So now, you lose all of that. And I remember I was sitting in church, and you were talking about something, I'm not sure what, because my mind was spinning.
A lot of people, they don't know what I'm saying. Yeah.
But I was sitting there, and I could feel anxiety coming in. I hadn't had a panic attack for a long time, but this intermittent anxiety comes in, and I remember saying to God, I just want this to be taken away, this anxiety.
Yeah.
And I swear I heard a voice in my head that said, I can. And that surge of relief just went through my body, and I knew that I hadn't given my anxiety to God. I had been trying to, as men are wont to do, carry it by myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't successful, and God told me, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. And now when I'm feeling anxious, even this morning, getting a little nervous about coming in and sharing my story, feeling that set in, I just took a second, prayer, thoughts on the way in, just saying, I need you.
Yeah.
I need you, God. I need you in this moment, and feeling relief and strength.
Yeah.
So I guess the theme of my story is that I relied so much on myself my whole life, and then had to be brought down to the absolute bottom and failure that I brought on myself to realize that I can't do it on my own.
Yeah.
And I need God. And now I can say with 100% conviction, I am afraid of nothing. I was put to being one of the leaders for the youth group. I took that up because I wanted to, and I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I'm stepping into these things at work, professionally, unafraid. Looking back, you talk about the chips that fall into place and the people that fall into place, and I am now where I'm at now is not at all what I had anticipated for myself.
Yeah.
Right? It was, I thought I was going to go to med school, and we have this picture in our head of what life is going to be like. And this is not at all. I didn't think at 34 years old I'd be living with my parents,
Yeah.
But boy, what a blessing it's been.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I'd be a nurse. In fact, I was keeping it at arm's length because I didn't want to follow in the footsteps of my mom.
Yeah.
But it got thrust upon me.
Yeah.
And boy, what a blessing.
Yeah.
And now here I am leading this group of nurses that some of them I call friends and peers because I've worked with them for so long, and bringing in new people and getting to impact them and influence them and give them a passion for healthcare and for people. It's things that I never would have imagined for myself, but here I am doing it. And now I'm finding myself in this community impact council I'm the co-chair of, and getting to do things at a site level, at a local level, at a global level, getting to impact people in need, and maybe even starting to change things at St. Luke's a little bit.
Yeah.
Reworking those, that paradigm of who we're caring for, not just people who come through our doors, but out in our community.
Yep.
And I'm stepping into this with confidence, knowing that I'm not doing it by myself.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm really super encouraged. And I hope if somebody listens to this, watches this, and if you've gone through it or going through it, knowing that you don't have to do it by yourself,
Right.
you can't do it by yourself. Right. Life is too hard. And I have found that there is joy in the struggle. Paul talks about it how many times in his letters, but I mean, my struggle is I'm not locked up in jail or anything like that. I get my 3 square meals a day and all of that. But like, I failed, I struggled, but there was joy in it. And I found a lot of good things in that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's like, I didn't know any of that. So this has been really, enjoyable for me to get to know you on a deeper level through hearing your story. And I'm wondering, like, so you're on the other side of what was this kind of like descent into that crucible moment, and then God has continued to build you up. But there are going to be people who are listening who like are either still on that downward descent, they're in the middle of that crucible moment, they haven't seen the victory of the other side, and they might think like, okay, good for you, Ethan.
Yeah.
Like that was great for you, but that's not my experience. Yeah. And what would you, like, having gone through all that you have gone through, what would you say to that?
Man, I don't want to be cliche, but it is giving it up to God. Man, it wasn't a light bulb moment for me. It wasn't just a switch that flipped. It was a continual conversation. It was one-sided. It was God screaming at me. But it was God moment by moment, honestly, Brian, keeping me safe. I think about it. There was times where I might not have I wouldn't still be here, very literally, because of the choices I was making. But God protected me and carried me through. Man, I really, that is a tough piece of advice to give. But knowing that God is the Savior of all people. God is the God for all people. No matter what you're going through, God is capable. And you are capable of overcoming. No matter what got you there, whether it's circumstance or your own choices, God is working. God continues to work. And that's what I learned over, really, it was a decade of self-destruction. Growing up was really dumbfounded by Jonah. What an idiot. He's got God talking to him directly, and he says, you know what? I got a better idea. I'm going to go this way.
Right.
And now I really very much relate to Jonah, because I didn't have a whale, but I was, no, you're going this way.
Yeah.
You're choosing to do this right now, Ethan, but I got plans for you. You're going this way. And that's what happened for Jonah.
Yeah.
Right? And then he was even resentful at the end. And I relate to that too.
Yeah.
Like, sure, this is great, God, but like, what about this?
Yeah.
And, so I would like to encourage people, if they're going through it, that God is more than capable.
Yeah.
Was it Paul who calls us more than conquerors through Christ?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
Romans 8.
You're not just going to get by.
Yeah.
God has plans for you, and you're going to do something great. if you allow him to work through you.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage anyone who hears this that they're capable and that God is more than capable to get you through it.
Well, we're really grateful that you're willing to share your story and open those parts of your life up to us. I mean, what an encouragement to know that where you were and kind of where God has brought you. And I know that what I am seeing out of your life, especially within the context of our student ministry, is the fruit of you continuing to persevere through the struggle and at that point give it all to God and surrender it, because I do think you're making a huge impact in the lives of our students here. And I'm grateful for that. And I remember I told you when you moved down to your parents, I'm like, you're moving far away. Does that mean you're going to leave our church? And you're like, no, we're still here. And like, we're so grateful that you're here. And so thanks for being with us today even.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been challenging being consistent, getting here every Sunday and that type of thing. But I love those kids and I love our ministry, and I wouldn't give that up for anything.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to do that. I'm happy that you're seeing that I have a positive impact. You know, my journey gave me a level of empathy that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And understanding that kids are going through it too, just as much as we are, and to have somebody who can be around and have, you know, just an ear to listen, maybe even have a little piece of advice. I'm happy to provide that for our kids. They're awesome kids.
Yeah. I don't know how many students are going to listen to this podcast or engage with it, but I know that Monty will definitely say, hey, you guys should listen to Ethan's episode, and who knows what you'll get from that. And then even just people in our congregation, I'm sure they'll come up to you and just say, hey, thanks for sharing your story. And who knows, you know, what other people or who in our church is also like in that place where they're wrestling through these things, and they could come and, you know, get help from just hearing this. So thanks for being with us today. Thanks for sharing the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see what God's got planned for the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really excited.
Cool. All right, Meadowbrook Church, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.